In progress.
Hello, everyone. This is a very important mental issue. This is parental alienation, which is actually father alienation. Because you'll see if it happened to women or to mothers on a regular basis, you wouldn't see this problem. People would be doing something. Now, this is Tom Tulin talking to Sonia Holton about his particular case where his wife ran off with his child illegally. And what's going to annoy me is that he is going to use gender neutral terms. He's going to call it parental alienation. And it isn't. Now we'll start off to see what they have to say.
Morning.
Okay.
As well as you could be, indeed.
Yeah.
Right, well, many people, Tom is here really to talk about, well, parental alienation. And I've talked about parental alienation before, and I've received letters from people saying that doesn't exist. It's just a load of abusive men who are trying to use a title and a tag to get away with this and that and blah, blah, blah. Well, it doesn't.
Well, she's actually giving evidence to what I'm claiming. Did you hear what she said? That's just a bunch of men. So if parental alienation was, Tom, are you hearing this? If parental alienation was equal to men and women, then you wouldn't have people saying this. They would be saying parental alienation is terrible and we should do something about it. What Sonia's saying here is her admitting that it's a men's issue. That doesn't happen to women.
Exists. I know it exists. I've dealt with enough people on both sides of the fence. Mums who are estranged from children, dads who are estranged from children through no fault of their own. And
Sonia, if mothers are estranged, why did you just say this is about men being abusive and making up stories?
Tom is unfortunately been placed in a position through no fault of his own, through no choice of his child. And that is in 2018, despite a UK court order prohibiting her removal from the UK, Tom's daughter was taken to Poland and you haven't seen her since, I understand, Tom. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've not seen her since 2019, July the 4th.
Yeah. What's been going on? When I talked to you yesterday, we're talking about such a series of court orders. So first of all, let's get some of the basic housekeeping out of the way. The first.
This is important, but I want to stop just for a second because I want to look at these two articles right here. This is about clarifying gender differences in alienation, right? Now, check this paragraph right here. Men's rights activists claim that mothers alienate children from their fathers as a way of seeking revenge for separation, and they argue that judges are gender biased, which they are, against fathers in these cases. It's not an argument, it's just an observation of reality. Feminists tend to dismiss alienation as a fabrication of abusive fathers who are trying to force contact with children who are frightened of them and control their lives of their abused former partners. If this, again, this is evidence, if this was happening to mothers equally to fathers, feminists would not frame it in such a way, would they? They would actually ignore that and just go say women are being abused by fathers, they need to get their children back. The fact that feminists aren't involved in this other than to jab at the fathers shows you, again, this is a father's issue. Do you understand that, Mr. Tulin and Sonia, right? Now here in the second one down in this article, mothers are twice as likely as fathers to be found to have alienated children from their parent. True, makes perfect sense. But this reflects the fact that mothers are more likely to have custody of or primary care of their children. They're trying to make an excuse for women's behavior, but they can't do it without admitting that the courts are biased towards mothers. So they say men are making an argument about the biased courts, and then they make an argument about the biased courts. So there you go. So this is what men are up against. Also, we'll look at this. Is parental alienation common for fathers? Well, duh. Because fathers are less likely to receive custodial rights of the children, parental alienation is more common for fathers than mothers. But I disagree with this. It's not just that. It's because men are they're willing, less likely to do this to their wives in the first place. And this is what these people do not want to admit. As a rule of thumb, parental alienation occurs when custodial parent-child, non-custodial parent. Although men are getting more custody than they used to in the back day, mothers are still more likely. Yes. And this is what's really important. Parental alienation is a common occurrence in child custody cases following a divorce, and fathers are disproportionately more affected by this form of abuse. That's right. So I'll put these in the description box. And now we can get back to that. So the evidence shows the main gist of this video, as this is a men's issue. Men don't really do this to the wives like the wives do to the men, and society supports the women who do this to their husbands. This is what I'm talking about, Tom. And this is the third one. There's a third issue. Tom, Mr. Tulin, did you get involved with this only when it happened to you? Like, this has been happening to men for decades, for tens of years. So I'm afraid if I say this, it might disparage you. Don't stop fighting for your daughter's custody, okay? That's not what I want. But what I'm trying to impress to you is that, will you pay it forward? If you ever get your daughter back, will you just end it and say, okay, I've got mine, everything's all right in the world? Or will you realize that this is happening to other men? And if you deserve a helping hand, they deserve a helping hand. This is another thing.
Thing that happens in these situations, I had to ask Tom, are you responsible for harming this mother in any way? Are there any allegations against you? Yes. Tom was accused of 15 allegations, all found to be false. They included financial abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, psychological abuse. And as I say, all were found to be false. What worked?
Exactly. They're all false. That's right. The standard is for women to just falsely accuse men. This has nothing to do with even just being a parent. The Me Too hashtag is a false accusation of men. And this is what, because Tom, not just you, but all guys listening, this is how women view men. This is how we're seen. You know, they get married to a man with the understanding the man is their servant. That's why they chose us if we get married. And they feel the desire to toss us, then we're gone. And this is how we're seen.
Tom's favour largely was that he's worked in education for 20 years. He has an enhanced certificate and shows a consistently clean record. The worst that Tom has ever been in trouble for is speeding. And he wasn't alienated from his daughter. His daughter was simply going on holiday and the mother decided not to return her. And well, Interpol are issuing a yellow notice. I mean, Tom, you've got so many court orders. I don't even know if I can keep up with them. You have Supreme Court, High Court, you have local courts, all saying that your daughter's abduction is unlawful and retention in Poland is also unlawful. What are the obstacles for you, Tom?
The obstacles really are Poland is just not cooperating. There have been 4 attempts to recover my daughter. Each attempt has failed. The last attempt was in May 2021, and it was like going to someone's house as if it was a normal occurrence for the police, the courts, and the psychologist to turn up, have a wander around, and look for a missing child. It was just unreal.
It's only unreal to you, Tom, because men don't realize and don't want to realize how they're viewed by society. To me, this makes perfect sense. You are the servant to the woman. and the child belongs to her. They're objects, they're not people, they're objects that belong to the woman. That's how society views the situation. And that's why this behavior is normal to me. And you men, not just you, Tom, but men in general, have to come to terms. They have to become aware that this is the case, and they have to admit that this is the case. The denial has to be thrown away.
I can't explain the emotions you go through when you attend things like this, because you start to come to terms with the fact that your child is missing. Then you get an email from your solicitor saying they found her, and then you turn up hoping to bring your child home, and then nothing happens. You turn up and
exactly. Notice Tom Tulin, his tear, he's almost going to break into tears. His emotional reaction is real. But this is a double whammy. It's not just the loss of a child. It's the loss of a child coupled with the fact that he realizes, or he should realize, that society, his own society, who he's a citizen of, does not care about him as a human being. His society does not see him as an actual citizen. Tom, you're only a citizen when it comes to paying your taxes. But when it comes to rights, women like Sonia here, they're citizens and you are not.
Everyone denies everything. No one knows anything. And it's just heartbreaking. And that's before you talk about the expense as well. It's just horrendous.
Yeah, the expense, and this is another thing. What Tom is basically admitting is that if you're a poor man, you have nothing. You have no rights. You know, if your job is working at Burger King and your child disappears, that's it. You don't even have a chance to go from start.
You've had 4 recovery attempts. You are the legal guardian of your child. You have been given full custody. What's happened with the recovery attempts?
Well, there's only been 4. There was 3 in 2019. All of them failed, and then the last one was in October 21. But just not getting the cooperation of the Polish court curator. The sister of the abducting parent works for the local police. The local police have been tasked with locating my daughter and facilitating a return to the UK, and it just doesn't happen. And the most on the last attempt, the really horrible thing was that the attempt on the 26th of May failed. 2 weeks later, the Polish police turn up at the premises, interview the abducting parent, interview my daughter, respond to Interpol, but they didn't arrest the abducting parent. They didn't remove my daughter, and life just goes on for them.
Exactly. You see, laws don't matter unless they're carried through. And this is what people don't understand. Men are subhumans to the actual citizens of the country. They don't want to help you. Women do not like men and men don't like men, Tom. And like I said, you're only concerned about this because it happened to you personally. But if this hadn't happened to you personally, this wouldn't even enter your mind. And this is the thing that must change. All legal systems are useless for men when it comes to opposition between them and women, because women are seen by men and women as the superior class. So the nobility, you are a peasant, and that's the way it works. So men have to be made aware of this. They have to get rid of the denial that it's this way, and they have to act accordingly to change things for the better.
I'm left in this limbo of almost mourning a child that's not dead, you know, because you go through the same process as bereavement.
Can't imagine. I mean, I cannot imagine, parent to parent, I cannot imagine the pain that you have endured over the last few years. And I find it absolutely shocking that the Child Abduction Act doesn't actually criminalize failure to return children to the UK. I mean,
Exactly. You know why, Sonia? Because the vast majority of the child abductions are by the women. If a man abducts a child, it's seen as criminal. And it doesn't matter what's written on paper. If a man abducts a child, he'll be seen as a criminal. The police will arrest him and return the child to what they see as the child's owner, the mother. And of course, it's not criminal for the mother to run off with the child. And this proves it. Tom Toolan's experiences prove it.
and that's insane.
Well, there's the child.
And again, they use insane, ridiculous, crazy. No, it's Sonia, Mrs. Polton. It's vicious and cruel. That's what it is. Society is vicious and cruel to men, and this is what's going on.
Abduction Act is, I mean, it came into force in 1984. And when it came into force, the politicians knew there was something wrong with it. And there was a legal.
That's right. The politicians knew something was wrong with it, but they didn't do anything because it only affected men.
It's called a Nikolai case, where a parent took their child abroad and then didn't come back on the guise of a holiday. And that isn't a criminal offence. That's called illegal retention. So
of course it is, because it's the same as postpartum depression. It's a legal loophole to let women get away with criminal activity. If they want to murder their child, it's postpartum depression. If they want to take the child away from the father, then it's what you just said.
I spent 3 years looking for evidence that my daughter's abduction was premeditated. And only when I did that did the police get involved. Essex police were not interested. They did everything to stop me, stop a full and proper investigation. And it was
exactly. It's like the recent Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation. It's a dust yourself off situation. The Essex police sees your wife as the true citizen and the owner of the child, and you as a servant to her. And so when she rejects you and just kicks you out of the family unit, is because that's what's happened, Mr. Toolan. The legal system says just dust yourself off and go and keep working and paying your taxes. That's what's going on here, and what men don't want to admit to themselves.
Only for the fact that Suffolk police took me seriously and had some ethical and moral obligations, that they supported me.
Yeah, they didn't want to come off as complete hypocrites. But trust me, the Sussex police feel just the same as the Essex police, really.
Right through to the CPS, and now we're on a criminal footing. My daughter's abduction, it was a criminal offence. It was a criminal offence under the 1984 Child Abduction Act, and hopefully that's going to progress. But you know, we talk about the unintended consequences of Brexit.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Toolan, you're making things worse. Men do this all the time. You derail. This has nothing to do with Brexit. The Essex police didn't ignore you because of Brexit. Brexit doesn't mean anything. If people saw men as human beings and first-class citizens, Brexit wouldn't make a difference. So everyone, please take notes. Men, take notes. This is derailment by Tom Toolan about his own situation that you have to avoid.
And this is one of them. If we'd have still been in the EU, getting an extradition would have been automatic.
Sorry, let's get that in.
I say that because as soon
Here, let's
But
get
the chances of that happening now is pretty remote, to be fair.
this is quite widespread, Tom. And I say that because as soon as we'd sort of tweeted, rather you tweeted and I retweeted you, somebody else contacted me immediately saying the same has happened to me in Greece. And then I got an email from somebody else saying the same has happened to me in France. So this is not a one-off, is it?
No. So Poland, abductions from the UK to Poland are high. One, because I believe of Brexit, and then followed by COVID. But I'm contacted nearly every day from mainly dads from around the world.
Exactly. Now, this is the final point I'm going to make. There's final 2 points. Like Sonia pointed out, it's widespread. It's on a macro level. It's worldwide. It transcends culture. Men and women are the same worldwide. And as Tom pointed out, it's mainly fathers. So, Mr. Tulin, since you had just admitted it's mainly fathers, and everything I'm showing is mainly fathers, don't use gender neutral terms. This is a men's issue. This isn't happening to women, because if it was happening to women, the feminists would be on it. And it isn't. So if you want to help yourself, part of the problem is, or part of the solution, I should say, is admitting that this is a men's issue. And also, if you ever get your daughter back, that you don't end it at there. You know, if you want men to care for you as a man, you have to care for other men as a man. This is something that men have to come to terms with. No offense to you, Sonia, about women see themselves as a class, as a sex, not just as a part of a religious group or a political movement. Women see themselves as a sexual class, and they see us men as the opposition. They see themselves on one team and we're on the opposing team. And men, and that means you, Tom, have to come to that conclusion. Women are not our friends. They are not our partners. This happened to you because your wife never saw you as a partner. She saw you as a servant and the member of the opposing team. And when she was done using you, she tossed you aside. And so if men want rights as human beings, we have to come to terms that we are members of an opposing team. And we have to act accordingly. Now, I won't bother playing the rest of this because it's made all my points for me. One, that parental alienation is father's alienation. 2 is that men have to become aware of this. 3, they have to overcome their denial of it. And 4, they have to take action, proper action. They have to see themselves as a class, as a sex. They have to show solidarity from one another. And they have to admit that the women are the opposing team. Okay. And that's what they have to do. Do you understand that? Okay, so let's end it here.